Hey, this is Prentice from Rhodes Fusion Fitness, and we're back again to do the second part of the hip mobility series, which will cover stretching. And why do we stretch in the first place? Well, you want to stretch to help you maintain a normal length-tension relationship. And all that means is that you're going to get the muscle to a length to help it produce the most force for your regular activity. So you don't want your muscles to be too short, and definitely you don't want your muscles to be too stretched out and weak. Now, having said that, you don't want to stretch for stretching's sake. So make sure that you go get screened by a professional to know exactly what it is you need to work on. Now, these are the three types of stretching that we're going to cover today. Static or relaxed stretching, just lying down holding a stretch for 10-20 seconds. You're going to do some inhibition work, which is tightening the muscle around on the opposite side of the joint to help you get into the stretch, and isometric stretching. So I'm going to demonstrate all three of those stretches with a couple of hip stretches that you'll need to work on. Let's get going. Okay, so let's get started with those stretches. First thing we're going to work on is a static stretch, and to demonstrate this, I'm going to use a hamstring stretch. And what you're going to do is get a board, it could be any 2x4, whatever you have around. You're going to place it underneath your non-working leg, non-stretching leg, so that you don't compensate. And by compensating, I mean when you're going into the stretch, you're not lifting the opposite leg, you're not rotating your hip or anything. So you have some feedback there. So we're going to take the towel, place it behind the heel and your leg, and get into the position here. With your non-stretching leg, you're going to push directly into the board and keep your foot pointing straight up the entire time. And we're going to go through some cycles of breathing. 3 seconds in, hold, and 3 seconds out. And when your muscle has relaxed, you're going to let the joint move into a greater range of motion. You're not going to force anything in this protocol. You're going to practice this for 5 to 10 cycles of deep breathing, or until you've achieved your greatest range of motion for the day. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is a reciprocal inhibition stretch. And what that means is that you're just contracting, you're tightening the other side, the opposite side of the joint to tell the other muscle to relax. And we're going to work on a hip flexor stretch for this. We're going to get into a kneeling position and make sure that the knee that's down is at 90 degrees. From this half kneeling position, you're going to take your pelvis, get it into a posterior tilt, or tuck your tailbone under. Now, what you're going to do is tighten your glute muscle. And you're going to move your hip into extension. Okay, and remember, since this stretch is being driven by the glute, the more you want to stretch your hip flexor, the more you have to contract that glute and move the hip into extension. And again, you're going to practice this for 3 to 5 repetitions, 10-second hold times, until you've achieved your greatest range of motion for the day. And finally, we're going to work on that isometric stretch. And I'm going to demonstrate this using a seated groin stretch, or you may know this as a butterfly. I'm going to sit against the wall so that I can maintain proper posture in my spine. Don't want to go into spinal flexion because that may cause an injury someplace else that you don't want to deal with. Okay. What you're going to do is tilt your pelvis forward a little bit, or stick that belly button out in front of you. Grab your legs with your hands and place your elbows on the inner thighs. Now what you're going to do is push up against the elbows with the inner thighs and hold it. Hold it for a count of 10, and then you're going to relax for a count of 10. And you're going to keep repeating this cycle for 3 to 5 repetitions or until you've achieved your greatest range of motion for the day. Okay, so that's the hip flexibility series. Again, don't practice these unless you've been screened, because you want to know exactly what you're working on. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to do some hip stabilization exercises. We'll see you next time.